that doesn't actually create any real value. Because like you said, even in a group setting, what people really need help with is implementation, right? That's like, you've seen this in your business. I think anybody listening will know that the value comes from helping people implement ideas, right? Ideas themselves don't have a lot of intrinsic value.
What other things do you think stop people from moving into delivering courses and to a group, and then especially in the online space?
It's hard. First and foremost, it's a really difficult thing to do. And it takes a lot of time to do it really well. I love that you said transformational online courses, because that's the key. Learning isn't just about the transfer of knowledge. It's about the transformation of the student. And those are two polar opposite things, right? The easy part is to record a bunch of videos of you talking through your stuff or writing a bunch of blog posts on what you're good at, and then just broadcasting that to people. That doesn't actually create any real value. Because like you said, even in a group setting, what people really need help with is implementation, right? That's like, you've seen this in your business. I think anybody listening will know that the value comes from helping people implement ideas, right? Ideas themselves don't have a lot of intrinsic value. Maybe they have intrinsic value, but they don't have practical real world value. If you can translate that knowledge into, and there's still room for broadcasting. It's called pre-training, but it's something that you still want to do and introduce people to concepts. But what you should be focusing on is the transformation. And like I said, to answer your question, it's the hardest thing to do. It's really, really challenging. And there's a lot of work that goes into that. But there is a method to do it.
Let's dive into the methodology behind it. So where's a good place for a coach or consultant to start with? I guess there's some kind of planning which goes into it. And I'm guessing there's a series of steps that ideally they can follow. So where do we start with creating a course?
Okay, so we'll talk about the starting point, and then there's these 3 Ps that I always talk about, which I think is helpful to anybody listening to really kickstart your course design. But the starting point of all of this is clarifying what your transformation is. It's a lot like, Robin, what you talk about with the value proposition. Like, to me, and actually the teaching elements of it and the marketing element are there's a lot of overlap between that. A lot of marketing is education. A lot of education, there is some marketing. You have to get someone's attention, right? So starting with that, what is the transformation that you can promise? It should be framed in terms of the student, and it should be very action oriented, right? So that's the key. Like, by the end of this course, you will be able to fill in the blank, right? From there, you work backwards. And by the way, the beginning of all of this, as it is with marketing, is identifying who your student is. So once you've got their transformation, you go to the beginning and you say, well, where they're coming in from. So what level of prior knowledge do they have? And now you've mapped out a journey, right? And that's, now you then fill in the gaps. We'll go back to that knowledge curse. How do we connect the dots between the prior knowledge and that transformation? That becomes your learning journey, which doesn't have to be linear. It could be a sort of map of, these are the things you need to know. But now you've basically got all the building blocks that you need to create your course. And so we get into, when I'm working with course creators, we get into all the different ways you want to start to first structure that information, as you drill down into each of those dots that you've connected. And we talk about delivery. I'll mention the 3 Ps quickly, because this is a helpful framework to look at all of that through. And the 3 Ps are basically personal meaning, prompts to action, and peer-to-peer learning, right? So personal meaning is no student is going to complete any course unless they've connected it with a personal reason for doing the course, right? So, if you teach people how to grow their business and how to clarify their value prop and increase their prices, and unless that's something that really aligns with what they're trying to do in their life, in fact, you actually go about this, that's sort of how you start your whole process, I think, right? It's like really getting them to think about what they want out of it. And I say, like, you want to connect with your students' want with what you think and know that they need. That's sort of the bridge to get that transformation. So that's personal meaning. Put a whole bunch of reflection questions basically in your course and get them to be thinking about why they're taking it. So prompts to action is to get them to take action. Goes back to what we were saying, right? Implementation is the key here. And so you need to be designing as the expert. What should they do next? How should they go and apply this? And then build the reflection into that as well. So now that they get real, that's what learning is, right? Do, reflect. It's a feedback loop. That's the second one. And then the peer-to-peer learning is, I think, what everyone who's been in this online course world has seen just come to the fore this past year, is the communities that come up around learning, around courses. And there's a lot of interesting instructional design ways you can set in your program to maximize that, to get people to think about accountability groups as students, where they have small groups of people that they get together with and do the work that you've set for them. And then journey groups, kind of having mentors that you can go to, where it's a slightly bigger group and you just talk about the the challenges you have taking the next step. That's the peer-to-peer piece. So I think if you hit those three things, personal meaning, prompts to action, and peer-to-peer learning, you've got a very solid foundation for your course.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you're saying, actually, because when the pandemic kicked off in March here in the UK and April and the sort of the months thereafter, we actually changed our core values for Fearless Business around quite a lot. So I already had that group program running, but we made community our number one core value during the lockdown and during the pandemic, because I found that it did really help to kind of bring people together, and that extra level of accountability, and people were quite rightly like really worried about what the future of their business was going to be through all of this. So you can't underestimate the power of having that accountability group around you. And it's not the Robin Waite show. It's not led by me. It's led by our team of coaches. It's led by, all of the clients as well. And we put them into accountability buddies. So we gave them all accountability buddy, put them into small groups. Some of them, we made sure that they all got onto the right coaching calls at the right time. And that made a huge difference in terms of kind of the results which they could expect.